Welcome to How to Be Alpha, a show exploring the essentials of having a personal brand and how to generate revenue using your own face and stories. I'm your host, Elizabeth Halford, and I've been curating my personal brand since 2008, when a career as a pro blogger landed in my lap. I became a well-known brand, generating a full-time income before that was really even a thing. I took a break, and now I'm back, bringing you all the juicy gossip to be alpha in your business. And by that, I mean being the best you can be, because your only competition is you, which is great news because it means everyone can be alpha. A few notes before we get started. Don't drive and take notes. Every episode has its own page at youisalpha.com/podcast. Also, please leave me a review on iTunes. You're a small business. I'm a small business. You know the drill. I might even read it out on air. Thanks for joining me. Let's jump right in. Hey, you know what I forgot to do last week was to say that I looked back into my stats on this podcast, and even though I took a month off, I still had hundreds of listeners tuning in to my previous episodes. So that's really encouraging. It's so great to know. Good to know that you guys are still here, that you're still listening, even if I take some time off, which is a great object lesson for you, business and brand owners, that if you take a breather, it's okay to stop rowing your boat for a few minutes if you need to. Everything will still be in place when you get back, and you'll feel refreshed and ready to go. So take some me time when you need it, okay? Last week, I talked about inbound versus outbound marketing, and I briefly touched on the subject of how to stretch your ideas and give that content legs. But that topic was a really good example of the very first tip, which is to not try and cram too much information into one space. So we're going to really give this topic some oxygen, all of its own, and I'm dedicating a whole episode to this topic. If time is money, then making the best use of your time is all about getting more bang for your buck. Killing two birds with one stone, stretching your ideas, and giving your content legs. I'm going to keep saying that. That's my favorite way to say what it is I'm trying to say when I talk about stretching your ideas, is giving it legs so it can walk around in the world and do all the work for you that it's meant to be doing. And this is what we're talking about today. Let's dive right in. Number 1, split your ideas into more than one piece. The first way that you can make more than one piece of content is to split up your ideas. When writing your blog posts, planning your videos, or sharing your images, ask yourself, can this actually be more than one piece of content? Because each item you cram together is going to dilute the power that each item holds in and of itself. Example number 1, split a topic into parts and spread out the sharing of that information. Like with last week's episode and this one you're listening to, originally they were going to be one topic and it evolved into 2, taking that big effort and making it work doubly hard to produce value. Another example is sharing images one at a time. My other photography business is about shooting weddings, and I might be dying to show my audience a whole luscious gallery of images from a recent wedding, but instead I schedule them out one by one, and I use them as opportunities to unfurl a beautiful narrative about that couple's day, or to share the value propositions for that particular photography brand of mine. If that wedding has a blog post with all those images in it, I can use each photo I post to Instagram or to Facebook as an opportunity to drive traffic to that post where they can see everything all at once if that's what they desire. And I just mentioned about sharing a brand's value propositions and using those images or that content as an excuse or as an opportunity to talk about your brand value propositions. If you don't know what that means, go back to episode 5. I have a whole how-to, very easy steps for you to build out your brand's value propositions. It's going to be a really powerful thing for you to do when you're planning all of this content, because it's going to give you a lot of ideas about the things you can talk about and about the copy that you can work into when you're sharing images and videos. Number 2 is masterpieces and micro pieces. Another example of splitting your content up is taking a masterpiece and sectioning that out into micro stories, which stand alone as strong enough pieces of content. I then use those tidbits to point users back to the masterpiece from which they were extracted. For example, the masters of my podcast land in your favorite podcast app every Monday. And then when I really have my shit together, you'll see and hear posts on my various social platforms that are short excerpts from the master episode. I try to post these on a Wednesday and a Friday. These are tiny bits which add value all on their own, but drive traffic back to the master, which is the whole episode of the podcast. I'm making the effort to create this content, and so I might as well go a tiny bit further to make that huge load of work produce even more value in terms of traffic to my blog, education for my audience, and content to keep me at the front of your mind. Number 3 is fit for platform. When you're planning your content, be aware that some ideas are perfect for only one platform, while others can be adapted to feel as though they were created for every platform. When I was in ad school, we learned that an advertising concept was strong if it could be communicated only in print. As a video producer at the time, all of my ideas were complicated stories to be fleshed out as TV commercials or web videos, so I was constantly being redirected to refine my ideas into something so simple and powerful that they could be communicated first as print and later as TV commercials or radio spots, if that was called for. This really trained my brain to think in terms of how to tell one story in many different ways depending on the way your audience is accessing you in that moment. It's about reaching them not with just great content, but content which is in context for them. You might be listening to this episode in iTunes and seeing an episode cover crafted just for you as a podcast listener. You're hearing my voice, I'll jump in with a little advertisement later, and you can access all of this while you're driving or working out or too busy to be sitting at a computer reading. If you're accessing this episode on my website, you have the option of streaming the audio or reading it like a blog post, because you might be in a place where you can't listen to audio, like pretending to sleep next to someone, or at work where watching videos would seem like a no-no, even if they're relevant to your work. If you catch this episode on my Instagram, it will be formatted perfectly for IGTV with a gorgeous cover image in the right dimensions for that platform. Each episode is automatically turned into a video by my streaming service and uploaded to my YouTube channel for those users to access. In short, don't just write a blog and dump it and run on to the next one. Think of all the ways that your users access information, the different ways people like to learn. Some people can learn by reading, some people better learn by listening, and create a version of that piece of content that hits all of those different targets that is fit for all of your different platforms. Number 4 is recycled content. The easiest way you can amplify previously published content is to just post it again. This episode and the blog posts that go with it land on a Monday. On a Tuesday, I'll post and tweet a link to it again with an ICYMI headline, which stands for In Case You Missed It. Feed algorithms mean that most of your Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter followers probably didn't see it the first time anyway, and if they did, then seeing it again just reminds them of a piece of content they wanted to click on before but didn't have time. Or they want to read it again. I've never been annoyed by seeing something twice. Another way to recycle content is to go into your archives and backlog of previously published content and just share it again. You can simply share it as if it were new, or create a new piece of content that's an updated version, which drives traffic back to the first time you spoke about that thing. Hold that thought. I just need to introduce you to my sponsor. She's gorgeous and she's smart and she's alpha and she's me. Until I have a fancy sponsor giving me money to talk about their stuff. Hello, Squarespace. This podcast is sponsored by me and my business called You Is Alpha. Listen, when I was a new blogger and content creator, Instagram wasn't a thing. I survived for 5 years on one set of images. It's not like that anymore. If you use Instagram, email marketing, or blogging, your audience expects to be served timely, new, and stimulating visual content and the stories you write to go with them. You Is Alpha is a photography brand serving influencers, online entrepreneurs, and personal brands with batch-created photographic content to generate revenue by staying at the forefront of your audience's mind. And because we only shoot once per quarter, you walk away with 3 months worth of content to post and use regularly. Schedule that stuff out and get back to running the rest of your business. You can find me at youisalpha.com. Number 5, and my last tip for how to stretch your content ideas, is to treat your blog like a wiki. Anytime I use a phrase or I talk about something I've talked about before, I turn that into a link back to the original content. For example, whenever I reference the concept of a brand value statement, I always link to an episode where I told you exactly how to build one for yourself. I do this for many reasons, but mostly if users are wondering what I mean when I say something and I've already defined that thing in the past, I do not want them leaving my platform to go searching for that information elsewhere. I want to show the richness of my expertise, and whether users click on those links or not, it still displays the vast amounts of information that users can hope to access on my platform. It says, I've been at this for a while and you can trust me because I've talked about all of these things in the past. A variation on this deep linking strategy is that I begin each post referencing what I spoke about last week, and I end each one with a note about what readers can look forward to next week. And of course, you might recall hearing a version of that same kind of idea here in my podcast in audio form. This helps to build a single reader into a part of my tribe. You're not just getting this one blog post or episode, but a reminder that I'm here for you every week and a look ahead to what I promise to provide for you in the future. And a little tip, when I create these links in my blog posts, I make sure that they open into a new tab for users. This means that my readers don't go down a rabbit hole and forget where they started. I especially make sure to do this when the link drives them to a platform outside of my own website, like onto my Facebook page or onto my Instagram. So those are 5 ways that you can stretch your idea, give more life to your content, get more bang for your time is money buck, and give your content legs. Thank you so much for listening. You are such a babe. A reminder that all notes are available at youisalpha.com/podcast. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn as youisalpha, and on Instagram, I'm youalphababe. Now go leave me that review, and remember, you is kind, you is smart, you is alpha.